Energylandia is located in Poland, a short distance from Krakow, and it's rapidly becoming one of the top parks in Europe. So today I'm visiting Energylandia, home to two giant coasters, including this one, Hyperion, and later on it'll be Zadra, a new RMC that opened just this year, a couple of weeks ago. I'd picked up a rental car in Krakow, however SatNav seemed to take me on a rather strange route to the park through some country back roads. It did give a nice view of Hyperion though. On entering the park, it did seem quite busy, and the queue for Hyperion was listed at 70 minutes, although strangely the brand new coaster Zadra showed a queue of only 10 minutes. So with that in mind, I made my way to the back of the park to ride the newest RMC coaster. You get to the section via an underground tunnel, and when you exit it, you're greeted by a stunning view of Zadra. One slightly unusual thing though, was that in this area they were playing Hole of the Mountain King, a tune that's the signature music of Alton Towers, another unrelated park in England. Eagerly, I made my way through this wonderfully themed section to join the queue line for my first ride on Zadra. So Zadra was only built this year. It's the first ever from the ground up RMC iBox track coaster. The first time they built a hybrid coaster without having the remnants of an old wooden coaster to work with. It's good. The ride is a fantastic addition to the park and has simply phenomenal pacing and speed. It starts with a 90-degree vertical drop of over 200 feet, accelerating the coaster to over 75 miles an hour. After the first drop, you've got a high-speed airtime hub. Following that, you've got this turnaround, which is a little bit of an unusual banking to it, as you can maybe see in the background. But following that, you have this amazing zero-G stall that just seems to last forever. After that you've got a wave turn which takes you round. It's got some nice floater air to it for a giant airtime hill, but in the front you get ejector air, in the back it's floater. After that is a dive loop that you turn back, and then you get to probably one of the strongest sections of the ride, which is this transition here into the final inversion before you hit a leftward turn and slam on the brakes. The brakes are pretty sharp on this as well. You do get flung into your seat a bit, but the ride is just awesome pacing throughout. Anyway, I'm now going to go and ride Hyperion, I think. Hyperion was the first coaster that drew my attention to Energylandia. It opened last year as the tallest and fastest hypercoaster in Europe, with a speed of over 88 miles an hour and a drop of nearly 270 feet. The coaster is almost like a greatest hits album of Intamin. It's got a massive first hill that gives sustained ejector airtime, just like Expedition G-Force. Then there's high-speed twists and turns like Skyrush or Intimidator 305, an overbank like Millennium Force, and then at the end it kind of steals Shambhala's Splashdown, although this one's a little different. So you may notice I've gotten a little bit wet, and I've not actually done any water rides. It turns out that on Hyperion, the splashdown's a little bit different to other coasters of the splashdown, in that you actually get soaked. The soaking wasn't too bad though, and it was actually kind of welcome as it was such a scorching hot day. It's about 31 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, if that's how your brain works. I'm just about melting today. Fortunately, there's cold and cheap beer, which is good. It's about 12 zloty for a nice big glass of beer, which is pretty good for theme park prices. I've been riding Zadra, which has been pretty phenomenal as well, but it is just so hot today. My brain's barely functioning, so I may have to narrate a lot more of this than normal. The area around Zadra is really nicely themed though, with a variety of shops, bars and restaurants, and contains two additional family coasters. Best of which is Frida, a Vekoma junior coaster that gives a nice, gentle, swooping ride, in contrast to the insanity that is Zadra. In Zadra nearer the front this time, transitions are much more snappier. I'm not sure whether it's being in the front that's the difference, or whether it's the fact that it's just warmed up a lot more now. It was a pretty awesome ride. Yeah, transitions were much snappier than towards the back earlier in the day. Unlike a lot of coasters, I think I preferred Zadra in the front than the back, as everything apart from the first drop seemed to be that bit more forceful and more intense. The elements are all great fun though, with the first turnaround giving some nice sideways airtime before that absolutely massive zero-G stall. The stall is just breathtaking, leaving you feeling weightless and upside down as you soar through the air until you snap back around and into a great wave turn with more sideways floater air. After that comes a high-speed S-bend before you hit the biggest airtime hill of the whole ride. This gives strong ejector air towards the front of the train and a nice floater air towards the back. After that hits the ride's second inversion, which is sort of like a dive loop. but is listed as a variation of a zero-G roll. After that you've got a double down following into a twisted airtime hill before the final inversion of the ride, another variation on a zero-G roll. After that you hit the brakes hard and catch your breath after experiencing an amazing ride. I spent most of my first day at the park going back and forth between Zadra and Hyperion and doing what I could to stay cool in the heat.
One of the best things about Hyperion is the queue line is air conditioned, so it's roasting outside. It's not so bad for coming in. It's quite a lot of water to get in, there's lots of ups and down bits. But it's reasonably well themed at least anyway. Supposedly it's based on a space flight to one of the moons of Saturn. It's called Hyperion. There's a backstory involving aliens. You don't spend that much time in an area with actual beams to take it in. Because the first part of the queue is this nicely themed indoors bit. But a bit towards the end, it's all outside. So while you get a nice view of the ride while you're waiting, you don't really get to take in any of that stuff. So, keeping too short isn't something I'm going to complain about. The air conditioning part's nice.
Hyperion seemed to get better and better as the day went on, but Hyperion and Zadra aren't the only coasters or things to do at the park. Formula is another highlight of the park. It was the first of a new generation of Vekoma launch coasters and has 3 inversions and some great airtime. It uses new style trains with vest restraints, but these have plenty of given them to allow you to feel the airtime and forces properly. It feels quite short, but the ride is really great fun, being smooth, well paced and delivering some decent forces. It'll be interesting to see what happens to this coaster after the park build its next attraction, which is essentially a taller and faster version of this, with an extended layout. Hopefully the ride won't get too neglected, as it looks pretty stunning at night as well.
So it's been quite busy today, but still the queues have been moving very quickly. And I wouldn't say I've waited anything more than about half an hour for anything today. But despite that, they've decided to stay open for an extra hour, which means I'm going to get plenty of night rides on this beast, Zadra. There's only a couple of parks I've been to that have stayed open for extra long, if it's been slightly busy. Europa Park's one of them, Knoebels was another, but it's a really nice thing. I don't think 8 o'clock as a closing time is particularly early anyway, so 9 o'clock's even better.
By day, Zadra was great fun, but at night, it felt even faster.
So just had a backseat night ride on Zadra, which was pretty immense. It looks absolutely phenomenal at night, this coaster. The way you're diving through all the woodwork as well, it just looks stunning. I wasn't sure if I possibly saw some lightning as well in the area. Didn't think it was a special effect, so they're kind of ballsy if they're still running it and there's lightning nearby. But it just looks stunning. And ride stunning as well. I'd say it's been a pretty good day here though at Energylandia. I think it's really nice that they kept the park open for an extra hour. It was quite busy during the daytime, but the queues I didn't think were too bad, and they didn't move too slowly. I'm going to try and get one more night ride in on Zadra. Slightly annoyingly, they've gone down to single train operation on it after running 2 trains all day. So the queue that is here moves very slowly. But fingers crossed I'll get one more ride in. It's a phenomenal coaster though. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Fuge. I think Steel Vengeance is still a little bit better, but it's damn good. I'd say of the rides I've had, the ones in the front have been a bit more snappy with the transitions. And a bit more aggressive. Still, it's a pretty awesome ride no matter where you're sitting. The one thing I'm still finding funny is they're playing Hall of the Mountain King, which, if anyone knows Alton Towers, is their signature theme song. So it's a bit weird to hear that in Poland at a completely unrelated park to Merlin parks. I suspect I maybe look a little bit on the worse for wear side here as well, as I came here pretty much straight away after doing night shifts without any sleep. So I'm running on a bit of a sleep debt at the moment, but it's definitely been worth it. I will say the rides I've had have been pretty good today. I've had a great time. And I get to come back tomorrow as well, which should be good.
I would say that with the new additions, it's best to spend at least 2 days at the park. There's already 15 roller coasters here, with at least one more set to open in April. And whilst it may be possible to do everything in a single day, you'd be really doing yourself a disservice not to get re-rides on Hyperion and Zadra. They're both fantastic coasters. I plan to ride some of the smaller coasters and water rides on my second day, including the giant water coaster Speed and the Shoot the Chutes ride Anaconda. Unfortunately, the weather had other ideas, with a big thunderstorm causing nearly all the rides to close. I decided to check out a handful of the indoor attractions the park has, and sadly, I'd say they aren't quite on the same level as the coasters. There's a 4D cinema which has decent theming around it in an Egyptian style, although the film that was shown inside had nothing to do with Egypt, instead being a rather dated-looking dinosaur film. I think different films are shown at different times of day though, so maybe there is an Egyptian one at some point. The theming in general, though, is a bit of a mixed bag. Whilst the area Zadra is in looks fantastic, and the Swiss theme section of the park looks great as well, it contrasts rather sharply with some of the garish models used around other parts of the park. Some are really quite strange. There's also a dark ride called Monster Attack, which is very poorly executed. It's a shooting dark ride, but all the models inside of various aliens are static, with no movement, and there's not really any feedback when you fire your gun to know if you've hit or not. There's a good bit of variety to the rest of the roller coasters at the park, with multiple family coasters and several kiddie coasters, including one I rode with Coaster Force last year, which was one of the best ride-ops ever. One family coaster that I particularly enjoyed was Dragon, which is a Vekoma suspended family coaster, the same model as Orkanen at Far Up Summerland. In the back seat at night, I actually give a pretty speedy ride. The theming of the coaster is quite nice as well, with a few dragons set throughout the queue line, and the ride itself is almost completely over water. As with many parks, it has some other staple coasters, like a Spinning Wild Mouse, a Wacky Worm, and a Vekoma SLC, although this SLC is actually quite enjoyable and re-rideable. It has new style trains, so there's very little headbanging or roughness that you typically associate with these coasters. I actually rode it twice, which is strange for an SLC. Eventually, the sun set on my second day at Energylandia, except this time I ended up having night rides on Hyperion, and they were epic. The first drop in darkness reminded me a lot of riding Skyrush at night, and the quick twists and turns at the end felt incredibly intense. You scarcely have time to catch your breath, and at one point I found myself reaching for the lap bar instead of having my hands in the air, which is pretty rare for me. It felt that quick.
So finishing up the day with a couple of back-to-back night rides on Hyperion. It's an awesome coaster. At night there's just something else to it as well. It is just insanely fast. Just the feeling of speed you have on it. That first drop just feels like it's never going to end. It's an amazing coaster. Intamin are amazing. I'd probably say at this moment I prefer it to Zadra. Controversial opinion, I know. But it's just a fantastic coaster. Intamin Hypers are just brilliant. And so ends two pretty awesome days at Energylandia. It's been great. I mean, the park is just continuing to expand and expand and expand. It's crazy to think that in the last couple of years they've gotten both a massive Intamin Hypercoaster and an RNMC, and then next year they're building another massive Vekoma launch coaster. It's almost like this park's somehow found the unlimited money cheat on Roller Coaster Tycoon, and they're just building away forever. Anyway, this park's got so much at it. Even though I spent 2 days here, I still didn't find myself short of things to do. There's a whole bunch of shows I didn't end up seeing. They've just got so many different coasters and rides. Today, I had to have a bit of a break in it because of the weather, unfortunately. It was a bit wet. But I think it was mostly because there was thunder and lightning, which even I probably aren't brave enough to ride a roller coaster in. I'll ride it in the wet, but lightning, a little bit risky. If you're on a big tall metal thing that's sticking up in the sky and there's lightning, it's not sensible. So for now, it's goodbye from Hyperion in the background, and goodbye from me.
Overall, I had a great 2 days at Energylandia. Zadra and Hyperion are a 1-2 combo that's pretty hard to top, and they've solidified this park as one of the best ones in Europe, if not the world. I'll almost certainly be returning next year, as the new coaster is set to launch in April, and the concept art I've seen for it looks great. To find out how Zadra compares to the other big RMCs, why not check out this video, and be sure to subscribe for more videos from other parks I've visited. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video very soon.